Welcome to The Explainer. So, how is it possible that when one politician cleans up a city, it's called civic pride, but when another does the exact same thing, they're accused of staging a coup? It's a wild difference, right? Well, today, we're diving into the power of what's called political framing, and we're going to see how, a lot of the time, everything really does depend on who's holding the broom. Okay, so here's our roadmap. We'll kick things off with a tale of two very different cleanups. Then we'll unpack what this thing called a frame actually is. After that, we'll look at what happens when those frames harden, basically turning into fossils. And finally, we'll wrap up by looking at what all of this means for the rules of the game in politics today.
All right, let's jump right in with this central puzzle. It's a real-world political riddle that, honestly, gets to the very heart of why things feel so polarized right now.
So just take a look at this. On one side, you've got Governor Gavin Newsom cleaning up San Francisco back in 2023 for a big global summit. The reaction? Mostly positive, right? People called it savvy staging. Now, picture this, a hypothetical but very similar cleanup of D.C. in 2025, but this time it's led by President Trump. The predicted label for that? Something like a coup or urban martial law. Totally different. I mean, it's the same broom, right? The same goal, making a city look good. So why on earth do we get these two completely opposite reactions? What could possibly explain such a huge gap in how people see the exact same thing? And here's the thing, this isn't a new phenomenon at all. If you look back, this has been happening for a while. Remember Rudy Giuliani's broken windows policing in New York back in the 90s? At the exact same time, it was being praised for cleaning up the city and condemned for how it was done. It just goes to show you, the politics of public space has always been a battleground of perception. Okay, so the answer clearly isn't in the act of cleaning itself. It's gotta be something else. Something deeper, more powerful, that's shaping how we see things before we even get to the facts. And that something is what experts call the frame. So what exactly is a frame? Well, think of it like a pair of glasses. It's the lens you're already wearing when you look at a news story. It's this pre-existing narrative in your head that highlights certain facts over others. And this is the really important part. It basically decides for you what motives you think the person has. The pollster Frank Luntz had this famous line that just nails it. It's not what you say, it's what they hear. And that's it right there. The audience's frame, what they already believe about someone, colors literally everything that person says or does. Okay, let's really break this down using our example. The frame for Gavin Newsom is, liberal Democrat, a known quantity. So his motive is assumed to be pretty harmless, just good optics for diplomacy. The action is seen as just a temporary cleanup. But now look at the frame for Donald Trump. Dangerous outsider. Through that lens, the exact same action gets a totally different motive. It's not about optics, it's ideological, it's about punishing his enemies. And the action itself, it's not just a cleanup anymore. It's seen as this huge existential power grab. You see, the person doing it completely changes how the act is seen. But here's where it gets even more intense. What happens when these frames stop being flexible? When they stop being just lenses we can take on and off, and they harden into something permanent, like a fossil. And that brings us to this idea of frame lock. Think of it as the point of no return. It's when the story about a public figure gets so cemented, so baked in, that basically no new information, no facts, no new events can ever change it. Minds are made up. Period. And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Once a frame locks, facts bounce off like hail on a tin roof. It's such a perfect image. The facts can be pouring down, totally clear and objective, but they just bing, 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 bounce right off. They can't get through that narrative. So what does this actually mean in the real world? Well, the effects are huge. When someone is frame locked, their opponents will never see anything they do as legitimate. It doesn't matter what the policy is. If it comes from the wrong person, it's bad. And on the flip side, their supporters will forgive or excuse actions they would normally condemn because it's coming from the right person. We get to a point where who is doing something becomes way more important than what is actually being done. And this kind of bias pops up absolutely everywhere, not just with city cleanups. The article points to immigration, which is a perfect example. A politician could state a policy goal, and depending on who they are, that exact same goal can be framed by news outlets to sound either totally reasonable or completely extreme. It all depends on the pre-existing story about that politician. Okay, so what's the big picture? What are the real stakes here? Why should we care about all this stuff like framing and frame lock? What does it all mean? Well, the author argues that what we end up with is a system that has two completely different sets of rules. Legitimacy isn't about the process anymore, about following the rules or what you actually did. It becomes entirely tribal. It's about who you are. Your actions get the stamp of legitimate or illegitimate based on one thing and one thing only: which team you play for. And that leaves us with a really powerful, kind of chilling final question. If legitimacy really is just tribal now, if one side's hero is automatically the other side's villain no matter what they do, then what is that next broom actually for? Is it for cleaning? Or, in a world like that, will it always be seen by the other side as a weapon for conquering? Something to really think about.